Hey friends, Wayne over at Ray Man Inc., world famous brake restoration expert from way back in the day. Right there, brake answer man. Well, today I wanted to visit, since I'm doing this morning. Here it is, March the 4th, about 3:30 in the morning, 2022. So, clients sent in, this happens all the time. So, here we have a collection of HEMI boosters, HEMI brake boosters. And here's what we're going to talk about, and I'm going to give y'all folks some insight. So, I've made a bunch of videos over this in the last long time. But here we have a very, very nice original HEMI unit. Okay, so the tandem Bendix booster. 2 boosters in one. The tandem Bendix booster is one of the most powerful boosters ever developed as far as a vacuum booster. The tandem Bendix booster is one of the most powerful boosters of all time. It'll still flow within about 10% of any booster today. It is first class all the way. So, the tandem diaphragm Bendix booster came out in 1962. They developed it to be stuck on the Imperials. That's what it was for. The Imperials get top of the line, and then things funnel down from there. It's always been that way. The reason they developed it is because they wanted to put the biggest size drum master cylinder at the time on the vehicle. They's running an 1.1/8 drum brake jar type master cylinder. They wanted it to be as plush as possible. They wanted the pedal to be as soft as possible, and they wanted maximum braking force. They weigh a lot more than a C-body, and an Imperial is not a C-body. The Imperial is top of the line, super big components. The chassis itself is based on Dodge D200 type components and sizes. Yes, it's built on a 3/4 ton chassis. So, enough of that. So that's the history of it. So, in late 1966, when they decided to put disc brakes on the B-body, they said, okay, hey, we'll go with this thing. So, they came up with 2 versions. They came up with a rear can that has 1 bolt pattern, HEMI bolt pattern, 3/8 studs, and it has a slightly different pattern to it than a regular booster. A HEMI booster will not bolt and go through the plate nor the firewall. A HEMI booster back will not mount to the firewall. Wasn't designed to be mounted to the firewall. What they did was, and people ask me all the time, well, that doesn't seem like that makes any fucking sense, Wayne. So, a normal booster has got a slightly different pattern. So they changed the pattern, and when you look at it, it looks like they just moved the two studs, the top studs, down. But that's not true. All four of these studs are shifted slightly. They're shifted slightly so that when using the bracket system, the geometry's right for the full throw of the rod. The complete throw. So that the plunger goes all the way to max instead of just nearly all the way. So, most of you gearheads know that the factory did not change a bunch of shit unless it needed to be done. Because you want to talk about the bean counters and them counting pennies, it's always been that way. So, you with me? So, Hemi Cans have a slightly different pattern. And they have the large 3/8 studs. A normal booster has 5/16 by 18. That's what a normal booster has in the front and in the rear case. Here's an old original Hemi can. You can see I've gone to great extents to braze it up and salvage this unit. Had rust holes in it. So, that's some of my work. So, this was a feat. Ran across some paperwork years ago. This whole contraption, when they decided to put the Hemi in the B-body at the last minute, they said, okay, we got to run the big, here was the parameters, and Chrysler and Bendix did this in about 3 months. At the beginning of '66, you'd call it rapid prototyping back then. They put this together in about 3 months. It was a last minute thing to stuff that 426 in the B-body. So, here's the parameters they needed. They needed the biggest, most powerful booster at the time. So, they already had it for the Imperial. They needed a booster that was more than capable of pushing an 1 1/8 bore master cylinder. Most master cylinders have a smaller bore. So, disc brake master cylinder. And they needed a booster that had a large vacuum reserve, or a large size can. Why did they need a large size can? They needed a large size can because the first Hemis were running the mechanical cams. 66, 67, 68 were running those mechanical cams. And they was a rough grind. And they had a lot of overlap and duration. And they were pushing it to the extremes. And I get these questions all the time. They say, here's what clients say to me. Wayne, I'm doing me a Hemi clone and I want one of them little boosters that they used on the Hemi cars. Well, sir, they didn't use small boosters on the Hemi cars. They actually used the biggest booster available. Oh, that's not true, Wayne. Everybody knows that a Hemi won't fit in there with a normal booster. You gotta have a small booster. What kind of operation you running there? I thought you were supposed to know something. I've had people argue with me up one side of the pole, down the other. Sure have. So, getting over that, we'll move on. So, the B-body HEMI brackets and the E-body brackets are the same. The pieces are the same. The only difference between a B-body and an E-body is the pedal link. The pedal link. Here's a B-body pedal link, and here's an E-body pedal link. They are approximately 1 inch longer. The 7071 HEMI link is basically 1 inch longer. So, wow, we know what that comes out of. There you go. So, that's the only difference. So, if you got you a set of brackets, you can change the length and make it fit a bigger body. Moving on. The early Bendixes, 62 through 1968, 62 through 1968, the tandem diaphragm Bendix booster had a twist-in check valve. The check valve goes in 3 slots, and then you turn it to cinch it down. Has a small little gasket right here. So, like this client right here is asking me to replace the rod, make his a real HEMI. So, what we have in there, now this is going on he sent me his core. This is going on a 71 HEMI Roadrunner. There is no fucking way that me in my right mind can put this on a 71 HEMI. Because the 70 and 71s, they use big old E-body check valve. Now, I told you, so the nose cones, we're going to call this the nose cone. The nose cones are the same, 62 through 68. 62 through 68. So, if you look at one of these, you can kind of tell what year it is. So, 69, 70, and 71, the nose cones have a 3/4 inch hole in them, a round hole, with a push-in style check valve. Twist in, twist in through 68, push in 69, 70, and 71. So, most all those cans are gone and have been gone. So, in order to be error correct for HEMI people, oftentimes we have to alter the nose cone. We have to fill this in and drill a 3/4 hole. That's what you do. So, in review, through 68 looks like this. They use a twist-in check valve. 69, 70, and 71. The hole is smaller than this, 3/4 of an inch, and you have a push-in check valve. So, on the HEMI cars, 66, 67, and 68 use the straight twist-in check valve. the next break on them. The Hemi cars used a twist-in, straight neck check valve. Twist-in, one-port check valve. 68, 67, 66 Hemi. This funky looking twist-in check valve, 90-degree angle, is a Mopar Bendix check valve. But you see this on very early cars. 62, 63, 64, and 65. That's where you see it. So, I tell people all the time, dude, if you're gonna put your back together a real Hemi car, you need to try to make it as correct as you can. So, I'll get customers that, well, I'll give you guys an example. This is the truth. I'll get customers that, okay, so they've actually got their Hemi booster, or they've acquired the power unit from somewhere, they've had it, or the car still has its original one. And what they will do is, they might, master cylinders go bad a lot more than boosters. They might be tempted to throw them on a clone master cylinder. Boy, on a Hemi car, that is the wrong answer. That is really the wrong answer. And I'll tell you what happened to me a long time ago. It was about 2009, 10. They asked me to fly up to Indianapolis, and they were doing a Hemi transaction. The owner and the buyer, the seller and the buyer. The buyer asked me to come up there and take a look at the car. It was an extremely valuable car. It was an R6 red Hemi Daytona Charger. The best of the best of the best. And that old boy had a clone junker master cylinder on there. And when that buyer got there and we saw that and I saw that stuff, and it stood out like a sore thumb. And hell, when you look at a Hemi car, you see in real life, you see the air cleaner, you see the valve covers as your second focal point, and then normally your eyes go to this great big ass power unit that sticks out like this. Big old impressive sumbitch with a 9191 on it. A real one. Look at this bitch. Huh? Yeah, that's a bad sumbitch, ain't it? This beautiful lid on there. See that? That's an intimidating son of a bitch. Just the brake booster's intimidating and scares me. So, remember, all Mopar lids, disc brakes said J1703, 69, 70, and 71. Period. End of story. Doesn't matter whether you're talking about a E-body 9191 or whether you're talking about a B-body. See that lid? That's the correct lid. So, while I'm at it, I might as well tell you. So how can you tell? These were aftermarket camps made by the big O rebuilders in the 70s and 80s. No real caps ever said that in our area. They never had that paragraph of that shit on there. So if you see that shit on your old Mopar, if you see that crap, it's wrong. If you see that, it's right. Anyway, back to my deal. So once we got there and saw all that Mickey Mouse, the owner wanted me to go over it with a fine-tooth comb. He said, man, if he's willing to, he used another word, but he said, if you're willing to do that right out there in the open, we need to check this thing out from top to bottom and look for everything. So we did, and found a couple little things, and I'm going to get to the bottom. Now, this was a very expensive car, but this is the truth. My buyer said, I'm going to knock $20,000 off for your Mickey Mouse power unit on this Hemi car. And the owner looked at him and thought he was fucking crazy. And so I explained to him what he had, told him what it was all about. And he said, okay, I'm good with it. So, master cylinder, Mickey Mouse, nose cone and shit cost that dude $20,000. I shit you effing not. So, if you've got a real Hemi car and you're going back, I advise you strongly, especially when it's only $100 or a couple $100 or do a are you with me? You making a bad mistake. So, I've just given you the secrets of the Hemi power unit. You understand where it comes from. You understand how it's made. They put it on these brackets to lift it up so that you could get the valve covers off. If you'll notice something about the Hemi unit, see it kind of stands on its own. So I want you to picture this. So I've run across some old pictures of the Hemi units actually like sitting on the passenger side fender well and stuff, because what they were doing is they were popping the valve covers and adjusting the lash on them early Hemis. They had to get the booster off to get the valve cover off. That's the deal. So if you think about it, you know, instead of all getting up there in the firewall, all up in there and on your back and popping the seats out, I want you to think about something. This bolts up to where the master cylinder goes. This bolts up to where the master cylinders go. So check this out. So theoretically, you take the pedal bolt out, pull the carpet back, unscrew 4 nuts, whop. Power unit's off. Oh, you gotta disconnect the brake lines. But, so, get with me. Pull the carpet down, zip off 4 nuts, take the tubes off the master cylinder, and you can set this thing over there on the ground. And you can put it back on just as fast. Pretty cool, ain't it? I've always thought it was cool as shit. So anyway, this client sent me in this booster that he got. It is an original HEMI backplate. Had this nose cone on it. This is going to go on a 71 HEMI Roadrunner. So we got to do something about this. So in review, what goes in there? Big old late style push-in check valve. That's what goes in there. And then some guy stuck this Mickey Mouse rod in here. This is some old late 70s bullshit rod. This isn't for a B body, an E body, a C body. It ain't for nothing. Matter of fact, I don't even recognize that rod. I don't even recognize it. I don't know where it came from. All of your Bendix rods of the day are all shaped like this. The tandem Bendix booster was used on about 6 different cars. And so, the rod, in general, dictates, see, that's longer than this one. This is an IM2, this is an IM. This one's a 7CD. Some of them are marked, not all of them. But once you get used to it over the years. But if you'll notice from just one little trinket bin, I don't know what the fuck that is. And I know what I'm looking at. So, anyway, so they Mickey Mouse something up together. And so he's trying to get this together and do it right. Cool dude, he's doing it right. Called up, wanted some bracket parts. He bought some brackets from me a while back, and now he's trying to do this badass 71. So, gotta get this all going right and get it right. So, you know, I hope, well, let me cover one other thing real quick. So, the Hemis have this, often referred to as this dog leg rod to match up to the brackets. It's the shortest one. It's the only place it was used. Little dog leg rod. So for a review, Hemi boosters have a dog leg rod. Hemi boosters have a slightly different pattern than a standard can. A slightly different pattern, and they use 3/8 studs instead of 5/16. If you guys can pause with me real quick, maybe I'll get you one to look at. No, I better not. I'll be running out of time. So, I hope you enjoyed this presentation. Hope you enjoyed some secrets. How do you get these things apart? Bendixes have to be disassembled completely because the rod is captured by a retainer deep inside this rear hub. The rod, so if you yank it out, pry it out, try to stick something else in there, it won't work. Now these tandem Bendixes, they got a lot of parts to them, my friends. I'll show you a blow up sometime. But, so, getting them apart and rebuilding them is a whole nother thing. And you really, as always, you typically need the correct equipment to do it. I've got old #1 from Uncle Ron's shop back in the 80s. And that's how we get boosters apart and check them. So, if you need some booster help, if you need to talk to the expert of the experts when it comes to Mopar boosters, 62 through 78, and Fords, and 70 through 79. Give me a call. I'll help you out. Doesn't matter whether it's a booster. Doesn't matter whether you need a master cylinder completely redone and sleeved like we're doing for these. Brass sleeved. Or putting together Hemi master cylinders with all new guts, pistons, seats, check valves, and the like. You with me? It's hard to see. 222-9191. There you go. Alright, friends. God bless you. God bless America. And happy Moparing. Bye.